I took my grandmother flowers at the nursing home. Not lilies. They were too scented, according to management, as if Vera and Jimmy and the other old folks there, mouths perpetually downturned, would keel over and die from the heady fragrance. I wasn't sure why covering up the stench of institutionalism was a bad thing. Lilies weren't her favorite, so it seemed a minor concession, all things considered, but the principle of the thing made my blood dance in my ears. What kind of a place doesn't fucking allow lilies? I seethed, reminded of Galliano's story of Libertad prison where pictures of flowers and pregnant women were prohibited. I walked to her wheelchair in the dining room and her eyes lit up, startlingly blue pools that begged to differ whenever I thought we had lost her to the recesses of her own neurobiology. She was sleepy, so I told her about the baby on my flight and how the cats were doing, and quickly moved on to the business of food. My throat constricted as I guided pureed rhubarb pie into her mouth, tremors long having since replaced absent teeth. After every bite, she thanked me. Suddenly, my hand poised with the spoon in midair, she declared, "You're so nice." And then, "I love you." It was difficult to describe amidst that sea of avertible indignities, dulled eyes, and frantic hands, the complicated mixture of rage that coursed through me, that she languished in this wretched place, that no one understood who she was, that everyone in this sickly painted dining room had a story equally alive and similarly denied, but also gratitude that we somehow ended up together on this heartbreaker of a planet. The childish, self-centered nostalgia that permeated my visits melted away, replaced by a sense of love so full that it pushed at my larynx and made it impossible to speak. I watched the wiper snap back and forth officiously as rivulets of pathetic fallacy coursed down the windshield. Neither blades nor droplets sought to outrun the other, and I wondered why I was so obsessed with winning all the time. I wore my mother's pearls, an uncharacteristically conservative black silk dress, and a pair of running shoes with my tights in pained anticipation of the towering patent pumps I would wince in for the service. I wondered if the copious amounts of blush had pushed my complexion from the dewy, radiant realm into the zone of extraterrestrialism, and checked the rearview mirror to make sure I looked appropriately funereal. My father was telling me the story of my birth, and the phone call he made from the local hospital to my grandmother, my namesake, waiting in our farmhouse as she looked after my two brothers. His voice got low and tinged with smile as he described the long pause on the line after he told her my name. I listened attentively the way that small children do, greedily storing each detail to inspect later, savoring the story of their becoming and the deliciousness of being waited for. After the memorial, we pulled out albums spanning her 94 years. My mother had brought a suitcase of her scrapbooks. My 8-year-old second cousin Harrison, wide-eyed and dimpled with a delightful gap between his teeth, wanted to know if I could read the words on my grandmother's Latin club certificate. I naively made a pitiful attempt with the 15 words of Italian I learned from my Neapolitan boyfriend when I was 17, the majority of which were expletives, and then gave up. Sorry, Harry, it's a dead language, so it's a bit hard to figure out. I think this one means loyalty or something. Why did she keep it? I'm not sure. I think maybe it was something she was proud of, so she wanted to remember. What's a dead language? It means that no one speaks it anymore. How does anybody know what the words mean? If they don't speak it? We have lots of books in Latin, and there are translations, so we know what the words mean from those. And then there are these people called scholars whose jobs it is to study things, and they probably can speak it. But people don't use it for a living anymore, not in real life. So you could take all of the words ever made in Latin and put them in a box, and that would be all there are ever. It'll never change. Just like when a person is dead, you can take everything that remains of their flesh and burn it down into a fine ash, and then you can pour the fiery distilled relic of their humanness into a jar. And you can hold fistfuls of their charred bones in your hands and let a breeze dance the flaky dust across an Ohio field, a testament to the borrowed finiteness of our existence, the law of the conservation of mass, and our unrelenting belief in something called a soul. I wished I could slip through the forest of worry that muddied her eyes to somehow alter her internal settings from headphones to speaker, letting the voices that plagued her into the room to rebut them one by one. It terrified me that something unbeknownst to me could pain her so deeply. I wanted to hold her wizened hand and shout away the haunting wind of whispers. I wanted to compel them to prove themselves and in doing so reveal their mendacity. like the woman I read about in Psychology Today who told them to do her dishes if they were so powerful, freed ever so slightly from their grip when her pot sat in the sink untouched. I thought it would have been easier to debate them then, knowing what we were up against. At least she wouldn't have been alone. I opened an envelope from my mother to find a lock of gray hair and a greeting card from my grandmother dated February 9th, 2008. The writing is unmistakably hers, though the once orderly, meticulous looping of P's and F's are now mostly a legible scrawl punctuated by frequent exclamation marks. Below each line of text is the faintest shadow streak, where her weakened hand has lightly dragged the ballpoint pen to the next line, unable to lift it off the page. Thank you.